Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Racing Challenge. I am your host, James Gregory. Beside me in the commentary booth, Racing Ron Mons. In our production facility, the always sharp on the ball Joshua Wilkie. Week 7 brings us to the likes of Beckett's, Chapel, Maggots, Stowe, Club, Abbey, Brooklands, Luffield, Woodcote. You know we are at Silverstone, the historic facility in the UK. We have been racing here since 1950, over 70 years of action on this track. There have obviously been some changes over the years from its humble beginnings as a RAF airfield back in the late 40s when it was retired at the end of wartime. Guys stood around and looked at all that asphalt and decided, we should go racing. And in the meantime, we have seen FIA World Endurance Championship, British touring cars, Formula One cars, GT cars, motorcycles, and of course, countless incredible battles in Formula One, heroic efforts by the likes of Ayrton Senna, Nigel Mansell, Michael Schumacher, and of course, Sir Lewis Hamilton, who is the first and only person to have a section of the track named after him. And Ron, Silverstone is a handful. We've got a lot of horsepower on the track here, very few nannies of driver assist. We've got no ABS, no TC, and what are we going to be seeing out of these cars this week?
Well, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of drivers being pushed to their absolute limits. This is definitely a challenging circuit for these drivers. You see a lot of stuff that can catch these drivers out. Definitely a mix of corners. You have high-speed corners, heavy braking zones, and slow-speed corners as well, along with very long straightaways. So at a track like this, I think we're going to see a lot of these drivers push themselves and their cars to the absolute limit, and hopefully try not to make a mistake. One of the biggest sources of mistakes we might see tonight could be hitting the giant sausage curbs that you see coming through some of the final corners, as we're seeing Andreas Friedrich come through the final 3 corners here. You can see those giant sausage curbs there on the inside and the outside of the corner, so we might see some drivers get caught off guard if they hit those during the race.
Absolutely, and as qualifying is winding down here, I think we should probably keep our eyes on Kane Halliburton, who was well in the season lead. Haven't seen him here in this Friday time slot for a couple of weeks, but he has been putting his time in. Also, we've got Friedrich and Gonzaga, who are both in the season top 5. So these are some of the absolute best radical drivers in the iRacing community and in the world. So I'm looking forward to a fantastic race today. Ron, we've had a couple discussions about the draft at various tracks. Obviously, Spa and Road America we've been to already, where they had some long straightaways where the drivers could put the draft effect to use on these cars. Are we going to see any drafting here today, do you think?
I think it will be a bit unlikely because at a track like this with fairly short straightaways, I tuned into some of the practice sessions throughout the week, and the cars weren't going as fast as they usually do when they get the slipstream. Cars were only going about 3 miles an hour quicker when they were in the draft, so we might not see that come into an effect.
All right, and here's our starting grid. We have got Halliburton, again, P1 on the season. He'll start at pole. Philip Hurt next to him in P2. Barry and Kim Bjorklund in the next row. Friedrich, another top 5 driver, has qualified 5th today. He has Jorge Gonzaga, a season top 5er, next to him. In the next row, Haug and Iani. Moldakiv, and Brinkhuizen. Rolliston in P11. And looks like Junior Hughes in P12. And let's roll that. We got Sander Island, my cousin Craig Gregory driving out of the UK and I in P14. Moses Martin behind them. Samuel Ma and Damian Struthers will be in the next row. Thompson and Giddings in 23 and 24. Ziegler, Audia in 21 and 22. Alex Stumpy and Ollie Bridgman will be in the back row. And folks, this is 10,000 horsepower of radicals, and they are underway. It looks like Halliburton has gotten off well here. Hurt tucking in behind, taking it easy here in the early going. Although there's a couple side by side, look like Bjorklund and Herc are battling there for P2 with Barry sniffing around behind. And as we've seen time and again, Halliburton has already extended almost a second lead here.
Oh boy, there's a moment there with multiple cars spinning around. That was Herc getting spun there. The tough break for him. He started up towards the front of the field, and he's going nowhere. He's going backwards. There's Kimi-André Bjorklund, who spun going onto the straightaway, and he manages to hit the wall. So a lot of drivers running into trouble here. Looks like it was Bjorklund. Yeah, definitely Herc was involved. You saw a spin from him. A lot of drivers spinning at this stage of the race. I was about to comment how the drivers had managed to keep it clean throughout the first series of corners. We're seeing drivers fall through the field. There's Moldacleve. You can see him falling through the order. He definitely made a mistake. He is dropping through the field, and Stump, who's currently in 24th, and Moses, who's running in 23rd. Those two drivers have towed back to the pits. So right as I was going to say that these drivers were running clean, we see a lot of carnage in this opening lap.
My goodness, that was nuts. And cold tires here from a standing start at Silverstone and immediately going into some of these high-speed corners. Let's take a look at a replay and see if we can unfold what happened here. We're looking at Bridgman now. And oh my goodness, there we go. There's 4 cars banging together. Holy cow. And a couple of our top 5 season contenders that I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast have already plummeted down out of the rankings, including Bjorklund and Friedrich. Halliburton still enjoying one of his normal outings. Looks like he has about a 2.7 gap now above P2. Barry, who's got Gonzaga sniffing around behind him, with about a 0.7 gap. Haug behind him with 0.9. And my goodness, that is a highly active first lap there. And I'm a little surprised to see that much banging around here in the first lap, Ron.
Yeah, that's definitely the most amount of carnage we've seen in an opening lap of this season. And keep in mind, we've raced at tracks this season like the fastidious Alton Park, also in the UK, very tight circuit there, and also the Noorderschleife. We didn't see nearly as much chaos throughout the 4-lap race at the Noorderschleife than we saw in lap 1 here at Silverstone. So the point I raised earlier in the race about these drivers being challenged definitely rang true there. I mean, it was just drivers going off all over the place, and right before we caught that replay to see what happened there for Bjorklund, who got involved in a bit of a shindig there on the straightaway, I think there was some more carnage behind them going through Chapel, I believe that corner is. Forgive me if I got that corner wrong. I blame my dyslexia for that. But we saw just cars strung throughout the field, just going off the track left, right, and center. So very chaotic start of this race, and it goes back to the point I raised earlier, how we were going to see some chaos, and we got it on lap 1.
Boy, we sure did, and Ron, you're absolutely right about the observation. I've got to say these drivers have been quite impressive in some very difficult tracks leading in the first 6 weeks that we've been watching this, including the extremely difficult green hell in Germany. And my goodness, I guess it's the wide open spaces and high-speed corners were a little bit too tempting for folks who probably should have employed a little bit more patience as their tires warmed at the early going. And Björklund is feeling some pain from that start, as Friedrich, who both fell out of the top 5.
I'm going to correct myself when I said there was an incident going through Chapel. That was actually cops there, so you can tell my knowledge of UK tracks is definitely very extensive, although I did use the term shindig a couple of minutes ago, so I guess you can throw my journalistic credibility out the window. But very chaotic start, certainly for this man, Kane Halliburton, who I kind of placed a bet on before this race. I was talking to JR about how we should have an under-over like they do in sports betting for how much Kane Halliburton is going to win tonight, but certainly a lot to go in this race. Right now we're only 3 laps into a 12-lap affair here at Silverstone, so definitely a lot can happen, but a very good start there from Kane Halliburton. I think $10 Monopoly currency, he wins by over 10 seconds, because every single time he has stepped into these cars and raced here on iRacing, here on Apex Racing TV at 5 p.m. EST, I don't know what time that is in the UK. I believe that's 2100 UTC. I could be mistaken there, but every time he's raced in this series, he has always been a force to be reckoned with. He's just been dominant from start to finish. So right now, he is pulling a comfortable lead right now, 4.2 seconds ahead of Barry, as we're only 3 laps into this race.
And Ron, I think I'm going to have to pass on that bet. Halliburton is definitely going to win by double digits, barring errors, and I don't want to jinx him, but we have been watching Halliburton for 6 weeks now, and aside from a few very minor bobbles, we have not seen him involved in any contact. We have not seen him go off one time, so he has absolutely mastered these very challenging radical sports racers.
It's impressive. We didn't see too much of him last season. We asked him at the first race of the season at Spa. We asked him what he thought of the improvements that they made to this car from last season to now. Of course, last season it created a bit of controversy in the radical community about how this car drove. It really drove like a tub of lard with a Saturn V rocket attached to the back of it. But now this car is driven a lot better this season. It's put on some fantastic races, and we've seen that in the first 6 races of the Radical Racing Challenge season. So it'll be interesting to see if this great racing can continue on throughout the rest of this year. We're seeing some racing here with Damien Struthers, who might have made a mistake there in the second to last corner, is dropping back places as he goes down the Hamilton straightaway.
Oh, and something happened with Giddings there. We were talking about him earlier. 1 split today, so we've got a pretty wide range of skills here. And Giddings was toward the bottom of that list in terms of iRating. It looks like he has taken a tow and may be out of this one. And
like
meanwhile, we see Struthers
here
there getting past, and a replay coming from Josh. And here is Giddings.
Just going really deep into the corner. I suspect that he... Oh, what in the world happened there? I think... Was that a bit of rage playing into effect, or did he have some kind of technical issue there? Because he was flat out. I can hear that Radical engine singing as he floored it after making that mistake and just floored it straight into the barrier. So I'm not sure if that was a mechanical issue from his end, some kind of technical issue, or he just decided to rage quit.
Yeah, I would certainly hope that was a technical issue, because I didn't see any steering change there. It kind of looked like he just went full throttle right off into that wall. So Giddings looks like he's gone for the day. Meanwhile, Friedrich trying to recover from his little hurly-burly at the beginning there, sitting in P11, looking at my cousin Gregory there in P10, and I'm guessing, all due respect to Gregory, that he's not going to be holding off Friedrich long, and it looks like Ioni has gone off, as both of these drivers are going to pick up cheap positions, and there goes Friedrich making short work of Gregory. Well, although Gregory fighting back now. Oh my goodness, and now it looks like we're coming back onto the straight, and Friedrich will get that done. Gregory's giving him a cheerio there with the headlights. I'm not sure if he felt that there was anything hinky with that pass, but it looked super clean to me, and it's the kind of driving that we've come to expect from Friedrich as he works his way up. Moving on to Haug now. Looks like he's got Brinkhausen very close behind him. He's got that lead down to 0.3, got that gap down to 0.3 rather. Haug sniffing around there. Looks like he might be getting a little bit of a draft. He's going to show his nose. And he's going to have Haug watching his rearview mirror, and Haug with a pretty large gap ahead. So he's going to be driving in the mirrors and minding Haug here for the time being.
Considering the big gaps towards the front of this field, I think that might be the battle to watch here between Haug and Brinkhausen. So this will definitely be one to watch as they are very close to each other. Certainly Haug is holding on to that position. Now we're seeing some more battling here. This is outside the top 10. This is between Island and Audea. Those two drivers going side by side through cops there. That is very close. Certainly pulled off that better than Hamilton Verstappen did when they had that shindig about 2 years ago. Although saying that, I probably just ignited a firestorm in the comments section, but at the same time, I'm not the one who has to read through all that junk. So we're seeing some interesting battling here between these two drivers, and it looks like Audea manages to hold on to the position. South African, the driver is from. You don't see too many South African drivers racing in the series, so it's nice to have international representation. You can look through the nationalities of the drivers. We've got drivers from, obviously, the UK and Ireland, as you see Barry up in second. Of course, Jamaica, Kane Halliburton, who's been a fixture in the series, even if he isn't racing here on Apex Racing TV. But we also see a lot of other drivers. We have Ma, who's joining us from Hong Kong, so we have... Actually, no, I believe that's a flag of Macau. I could be mistaken there. I'll have to have my buddy who knows flags, my buddy Robbie Campbell, fact-check me on that one. But we have a lot of fantastic representation, which is always great to see. This radical community is always strong, and it's always a nice community to cover these races. They always put on some fantastic shows. They're always very fastidious. And if you want to be a part of these broadcasts, you can join us here on Apex Racing TV if you just want to be a spectator here on Apex Racing TV every Friday, where we carry the top split. Or if you want to be on track, you can join the official Radical Racing Challenge on iRacing. It's not a league, it's just a public session that you can join as long as you have a license C-Class and above. So if you'd like to join, those are the ways to join. We're following the battle here. We were looking at this about a lap ago between Brinkenhusen and Haug, so this is definitely very close, but still those drivers staying line astern.
Absolutely. And speaking of Apex Racing TV, folks, we are not just about these fantastic broadcasts. Think about Apex Racing Academy. Any VRS customers out there can add the additional ARA data pack to your VRS subscription. We have all the good stuff that you've come to expect from VRS, data packs, telemetry, and we have one-on-one and group coaching. So add Apex Racing Academy to your VRS subscription today and see if you can eke out those couple of tenths that have been eluding you. Now we're still looking at Haug here with Brinkhuizen close behind. Halliburton has extended his lead to over 7 seconds with 7 laps in the books and 5 to go. Again, much that we're very much expecting whenever we see Halliburton show up. There are a few drivers who can give him a run for his money, but none in attendance here today. And looks like Brinkhuizen may be changing his name to Blinkhuizen. He's got the headlights going there to try to get in between Haug's ears and see if that has any impact as we're getting into the back section of the course now.
We've seen mind games play an effect in some of these races. We've seen drivers blink their headlights a lot, and we've also seen drivers just trying to apply pressure. This is Barry having a lot of pressure applied to him by Gonzaga, who's closed up the gap. These two drivers battling is definitely, it might be bad news for Barry, who could lose second position that he's held throughout most of this race after the chaos at the start. But this is definitely great news for Kane Halliburton. We've seen how battling drivers can really just drag themselves like a parachute down the running order and down from the other gaps ahead of them. So if these two drivers start battling, which with how close they are and with how many laps to go in this race, that could very much be the case. We could see the aforementioned 10-plus second gap that I mentioned earlier when I put that $10 Monopoly currency bet on Kane Halliburton winning this race by 10 seconds. So that very much could happen as Barry and Gonzaga run nose to tail as they run through Beckett's.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we are watching Barry and Gonzaga there, it does look like Blinkhuizen, it's going to be his new name, gets past Hauga and has stretched out a modest gap. Looks like he's got out to about half a second here. But looks like the action now, Barry and Gonzaga for those P2 and P3 on the podium, large gap behind them. So And Josh is going to show us that pass now. We saw Blinkhausen blinking away, and there he's going to make the move here pretty easily as he ducks down the inside. Hauge's just going to back out of that. Looks like he's trying to set up the over-under on that exit, but not a good enough exit to get that done. And Brinkhausen will drive off, and his gap is now still staying about half a second.
Yeah, Brinkhausen had a fantastic run coming onto the Wellington straightaway, so that definitely helped him get the move done on Haug as they went into Brooklands there. So a very textbook move there. We're seeing some nice battling here. This again involves Island, who we've seen involved in some battles throughout this race. We saw he was battling a couple laps ago with Audea for 10th, I believe that was. They were running, I believe, just outside the top 10, but right now, Island, I believe, has dropped back a little bit. Now he's under pressure from Ziegler behind. This will be very close. Ziegler, it looks like he's closing a lot coming onto the straightaway. We've got a bit of a train here of these drivers. Your cousin from Bryn, Gregory, running in 11th, and Island in 12th, and Ziegler running in 13th, creating a bit of a peloton sort of train of radicals here. So this will definitely be a battle to watch. We've got battles to watch all throughout the field, and this is definitely one of them. Oscar Para Martin, who we are following now, currently running in the 16th position, is now applying pressure onto the back of Struthers, the Australian, who we've seen only a couple times throughout this series. He's always been a very clean racer, so you gotta give him props to that. And I'm sure with this battle that he might have on his hands with Martin, that he will be no different, giving these drivers the most amount of respect to each other. They respect all these drivers respect their competitors, and they always put on some fantastic racing. We might see some fantastic racing here, or it looks like Martin's got back out of it as they go into the Magnussen Beckett section.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. And these radical drivers from this kind of close-knit radical community have never failed to impress. They not only drive these cars with a lot of skill, they do drive with a lot of respect, and they drive with a lot of trust. And so that results in them, we're seeing a lot of side-by-side, very close racing that you might not see if the drivers weren't comfortable with each other's skills, as we see Brinkhuizen here rolling through that high-speed right-hander that is such a renowned feature of Silverstone here.
Section is producing some pretty interesting stuff. We saw this man, Philip Vanden Herk, was involved in an incident as he went through the section there as he goes through Aintree. He had that, I believe he got spun around or might have just lost it under throttle. I believe he was definitely involved in an incident. I'm not sure the exact specifics, can't really remember it at this time. But we saw him, he was involved in that incident on lap 1, and he is dropped through the field, but he has recovered nicely so far. He's currently running in the 6th position, and with Haug and Brinkhausen ahead, battling as hard as they have been throughout this race, he could well be in a great position to pick up a 5th or even 4th place position. That'd be some great stuff from him, and maybe if some more drivers ahead of Barry and Gonzaga start battling even harder than they have been these past couple laps, we could see a big fight on our hands as we enter the final stages of this race. We're on lap 9 of 12 here, avoiding a subtle accidental 911 reference I made last season at Bathurst, but we still have a little bit left to go in this race. Certainly a lot to play for at this stage in the race, because 3 laps at some circuits may just be a tiny little, just only a few chances to get past, but at a track like this, where a lot of drivers can make mistakes, you can see a lot of passing, and we're going to get a replay of a pass here. This is Ziegler battling with Island. We saw this battle a couple laps ago, and this also involved, I believe that's Gregory there, who is running at the running at the front of that field, and we saw Ziegler get past Island, who had like a series of 5 snaps in a row as he went through that corner there, as he went through Luffield. So very tough break for him as he drops down to 13th position.
Yeah, Island with a little wiggle there, and he's, I think, fortunate that didn't turn out worse. He obviously had very quick reflexes with the opposite lock to save that one. And you're right, Ron Vandenherk has actually recovered really well. He qualified in P2, got involved in that incident off the start on the first lap, and has fought his way back pretty well. And I got to say, as he's watching Haug, Brinkhuizen, and Gonzaga fighting it out up ahead of him, I bet he's kind of smacking his lips thinking about the opportunity that he may have to climb into the top 5 here before this is over.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to play for. We've seen in this series how these drivers, regardless of what position they're running in, whether they're running outside the top 10, whether they're running outside the top 20, or whether they're running for the last 2 podium positions, we've always seen some fantastic battling in this series, and it's always great to broadcast it here on Apex Racing TV. And there's a lot of broadcasts here, a lot of fantastic racing action here. We have the ARL GT3s. I know I do those broadcasts with my good pal Sam Fitzgerald. We do those on Tuesdays. That'll be coming up next Tuesday at Road America. That'll be an interesting one to watch. And this is a very interesting battle that we have to watch here between Barry and Gonzaga. You see the interesting line that Barry is running coming out of this Maggots and Beckett section. He just goes right all the way to the left side as soon as he exits that corner, going down the hangar straightaway just to try and throw Gonzaga off and maybe just break that slipstream. Even though earlier in this broadcast I said how the slipstream may not play the biggest effect that we've seen throughout this season, it still plays a big role, and I think Gonzaga, if he plays his cards right and he just stays behind Barry as they go down the hangar straight on the last lap, I think it could be a very good finish for Gonzaga. He could find himself in second place in the not-too-distant future.
Absolutely, and what do you do here if you're Gonzaga on? Do you sit and happy and satisfied with your podium position in P3, or do you think he's going to be sniffing around for a pass in the end here?
Well, I've never been the most aggressive driver in the world. Some people that are very close to me say I have the aggression of a teddy bear. So if it were me, if I were Gonzaga, I would probably just... I mean, at this stage of the race, I mean, you might want to attack because, I mean, we're on lap 11 of 12 here. Kane Halliburton is about halfway through the last lap, second to last lap, my apologies. He's halfway through the penultimate lap. But with these drivers so close to the finish, you could see some battling. But if it were me, if I was Gonzaga, I would just stay behind Barry for now, wait and just drop back a little bit, and then kind of sneak attack him on the hangar straightaway, try and go for a move, going down the hangar straightaway into Stowe, and just try and get that move done the last lap, because if you get the move done into Stowe, or if you get the move done in the final series of corners going in to Club, going down Vale, I think that could, I mean, there's really no way to counter that sort of attack. So I think if you're Gonzaga, the smart thing would be to just hang back and just kind of sit there on the last lap and then go for the move. But these drivers are always pretty aggressive. They want to claw for every position they got, and it looks like Gonzaga, he's looking down the outside. He doesn't stay in the slipstream. I think that could actually be some smart racing there, because if he stayed in the slipstream, he might have been forced to get that move done on Barry. So I think if you're Gonzaga, what we're seeing now, he's going to try and wait for the last lap, wait into this corner here, going into Club, or maybe going into Stowe to pull off the move.
Absolutely, and my goodness, Gonzaga beating this Radical to death here in the late going. You see that car wiggling all over the place, and folks, Silverstone is notoriously tough on tires. Those long, sweeping, majority left-hand corners and the low-speed sections will just blow the front tires off of any car, and I'm imagining that the Radicals are suffering from that to some extent as well. Meanwhile, Halliburton, folks, you're not going to see better drivers than Kane Halliburton on any broadcast that you come across. He is a 9K rated driver, and he has set a fast lap 1 full second ahead of Barry in P2. And oh, by the way, anybody who took up Ron's Monopoly Money bet owes him 10 Monopoly dollars, because that gap is now extended to 12.5 seconds with a little less than 1 lap remaining.
We're seeing some more battling here with Andreas Friedrich and Hughes. These drivers haven't been involved in too much of a battle. Friedrich has had a fairly quiet race. I believe he was involved in an incident on lap 1, so he is currently running in the 7th position. Philip Vanden Herk is running in 6th. It looks like he might join the other battle with Bringenhausen and Haug in the not-too-distant future. He's just closing in on these drivers, but I think it might be too little too late for him. So unless those drivers crash, that might be where Haug, Brinkenhausen, and, well, mainly Herc finishes. It looks like he's guaranteed a top 6 unless something major happens. But this is definitely a very interesting battle here. Will Gonzaga pull off the move that I think he was going to do? I said a couple laps ago that he was going to try and hold his own, but this is the big battle to watch here as Kane Halliburton wins. But right now, you don't see a move up there. We might see a move here between Gordon Haug and Brinkenhausen. These drivers are very close. Gordon Haug goes for the send. They make contact there, and Gordon Haug spins in the final corner. That major thing that I said that would have given Herc a top 5 result has just happened, and Philip Vanden Herc grabs the top 5 from the ashes of a massive and very disappointing mistake from Gordon Haug, who finishes the race in 8th.
Yeah, we might have to take another look at that. I don't think Haug is going to make any friends with those kind of dives in the end there. It looks like he's missing a little paint there. And yeah, Josh is going to show us that Haug move here in a moment. And here's Haug. Tries to stick it inside the chicane here. Overcooks the entry. Runs into car 7 there. That was Brinkenhausen, and actually Brinkenhausen lucky that he didn't lose traction and go off himself, and to a certain extent Haug was as well. I'm sure he wouldn't feel good about affecting Haug's race in that way. So wow, what a race. Ron, did we see about what you expected here at Silverstone today?
Oh yeah, definitely. We saw a lot of drivers getting caught out by the tricky nature of this track. We saw a lot more chaos than we've seen throughout most of the races this season, and of course you saw a big moment there for Gordon Haug. Personally, I mean, Gordon Haug is a fantastic driver. He's involved in the ARL GT3 trophy, so he is a great driver. He's put on some fantastic moves, but me personally, I think that move was never on, and it cost him dearly at the end of this race.
Yeah, it really did. It's it's tough to control the adrenaline at the end, and it looks like Haug fell victim to that. Meanwhile, here are our results. Kane Halliburton, as we said, completely drove away in P1 and maintained his season P1 for the Radical Racing Challenge. James Berry out of UKNI comes in P2. Jorge Gonzaga will finish in P3. Brinkhausen, after some very good dicing and passing done by him throughout the course of the race, will come in P4. P5, Philip Vanden Herc, after having a difficult lap 1, clawed his way back as he does. And behind him, Friedrich also struggled from that lap 1 incident. He managed to scratch his way back up to P3. Junior Hughes in 7th. Gordon Haug, who we were just discussing, will finish in P8. David Rolliston in P9. Mohamed Audia will be in P10. Eric Ziegler in 11. Craig, my cousin Gregory, will finish in P12. He was running a bit higher at a few moments during that race, but I think he may have been in over his head as some of those spinners reeled him in and passed him to push him back down the list here. Sander Island in P13. Simon Moldekliev will be in P4. Damian Struthers in P14 rather. Damian Struthers in 15. Oscar Martin P16. Samuel Ma in 17. Ollie Bridgman in P18. And that will, those top 18 cars are the cars that finished on the lead lap today. P19, Ryan Thompson. P20, Kim Bjorklund. I know he's disappointed. He's a top 5 runner early on and had some incidents. P21, Myron Iani. Looks like he took a toe and did not finish. 22, Giles Giddings. 23, Alex Stump. And 24, Felipe Moses. And those last few cars, gosh, looks like Moses didn't even complete 1 lap, and he ended up in the pits. Well, what a race. So we are a little over halfway through, and I don't have the schedule in front of me. Where are we headed to next week, Ron?
We are heading to Sebring, in fact, and it's going to be a very interesting race because it's going to be held at night. A lot of these races here on iRacing are usually held in the afternoon or sometimes the morning that we've seen in the past few races, but for next week at Sebring, it's going to be held in the dawn of night, so that will be very interesting for these drivers to negotiate. I'll pull up the rest of the schedule. We have a very interesting schedule on our hands as we close out this season, as you said, over halfway through now. So, starting next week, we have Race 8 of the Radical Racing Challenge at Sebring. You can join us here on Apex Racing TV on Fridays, where we carry the top split, and I think there will definitely be a lot of interested drivers and a big entry list next week, so expect to see some very fantastic racing next week, as we've seen throughout all of this year. Then we have Road America. Not Road America, Road Atlanta, my apologies. Road America was a season opener, and that put on a pretty decent show, certainly compared to the season opener last year, where about 22 of the 24 drivers crashed. We didn't see that this season. Road Atlanta is the 9th race of the season. And then after that, we have Mount Panorama in Australia, certainly put on a fantastic race last year. And then we have Autodromo oh Jesus, I can't even speak. Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache Interlagos, as many of you would call it, the home of the F1 Brazilian Grand Prix for many years at this point, will be our penultimate round. And then to end the season off, we have Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, where I'm sure Josh, our producer, would very much like that because he is a Canadian.
Wow, that is a fantastic schedule, and I'm really looking forward to Sebring. In fact, I love Sebring. I love driving at night, and I love driving this Radical. So you may see me out there in some practice sessions next week, just enjoying that combination. It's going to be it's going to be a fantastic race. And Ron, I think you're right. Sebring always brings up big fields, and we're going to see some good participation in this one, and a nice big skilled field in our top split. Meanwhile, it looks like we have Jorge Gonzaga, our third place driver here, waiting in the interview waiting area. Go ahead and bring him in. Jorge Gonzaga, welcome to Apex Racing TV's coverage of the Radical Racing Challenge. Quite a race today. Looks like you managed to avoid the kind of kerfuffle that happened early on. Was that near you? What'd you see unfold there?
Oh yeah, I was really lucky. I saw Philip spinning in front of me, and I was lucky enough to go on the left and avoid him. And as soon as I know it, and then Kim a few meters ahead, he just spun as well, and I'm like, okay, this looks promising. So yeah, I took advantage of that. And then it was just managing the race with James. He was proper fast, and I didn't really want to push too much to not to risk a third place. I thought third is better than nothing, so let me just stay here behind him.
Yeah, and that was our next question. We were talking about that a little bit here in the booth, what you were thinking as you were closing down on Bear. You had him down to, I don't know, 2 or 3 tenths there at a couple points, but it looked like you were just kind of wanting to settle in. What can you tell us about the tire wear out there? I know Silverstone can be pretty hard on fronts particularly. How's the car driving?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think after lap 10, the car transforms a lot, so you lose a lot of grip. So I was trying to save the whole race, save the tires for that final approach, and hoping that he would make a mistake or something. That was kind of my plan. But yeah, after lap 10, lap 11, especially on the last lap, I was really close to him, like 0.2. But then I think on the last corner, I had the bad exit, and he kind of took away to 0.5, and I was really struggling to get back to him. And I thought, okay, it's third place is really good. It's like probably over 100 points, which is perfect for the championship. So that was kind of my focus. Is I really wanted to get points. So yeah, I'm looking here. I got 136 points. So that's a good day in the office for me.
Oh, absolutely. That's a fantastic drive. You qualified P6, moved up 3 positions into P3, and I'm looking at the season standings coming into this race. It looks like you're sitting about P6 on the season, so you've put in a very solid season thus far. Do you think you've got anybody in striking distance ahead? As we have, I don't know, 5 races left, do you think you can move up a little bit?
Well, that's the thing, because 4 weeks are drop, right? So I think we're about to reach out the maximum of points, and then it will be really hard to gain points because only 8 out of the 12 races count for the championship. But yeah, let's see. Maybe there's still opportunity for progression, but there's a lot of people who didn't race during some of the weeks. So as soon as they do that, they get closer. But my final goal is to stay in the top 15. That's where I finished last season, but my main goal is actually the time trial championship. I won it last season, and this year I really want it again. But in terms of the championship, I think top 15. If I can get top 10, that would be amazing. But yeah, I'm not getting too excited just yet.
Well, I don't want to jinx you, but it looks like you got that top 10 more or less in the bag if you keep driving as you have been. And great driving today. Nice patience and man, fantastic. Thanks for coming by and speaking with us. Is there anyone who you would like to thank or give a shout out to today?
Well, a shout to James. He's proper fast. He just joined the Radical this season, and he's showing really good pace. And and he's developing a lot. And yeah, he was a good adversary today. And yeah, a big shout out to him. He got a really good result with P2.
All right. Well, again, Jorge, thank you for coming by, folks. That was Jorge Gonzaga, our last step on the podium here today at Silverstone.
That was a very awesome race. I think there's a lot of interesting stories throughout the field, and Jorge Gonzaga was definitely one of those. You mentioned how he gained 3 positions throughout the field, which is pretty significant, but definitely not the highest. The highest position gainer in this race tonight was actually Mohamed Audia, who finished in the 10th position from a 22nd place start. So he gained 12 positions throughout this race. So he was the most improved driver. And right behind him was second most improved driver, Eric Ziegler, who finished 11th and gained 10 positions in this race. So we had a lot of drivers gaining positions. Sure, it probably wouldn't have been that much if we didn't have a lot of chaos that we did on lap 1, but still very impressive stuff from those drivers there.
And wow, fantastic race here at Silverstone. And folks, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to Apex Racing TV. Take a look at Apex Racing Academy content on VRS. Subscribe to that today. And wow, what a fantastic race. And definitely join us next week at Sebring. And I think that is going to wrap it up for today's broadcast. I am J.R. Gregory. Beside me, as usual, my partner in crime, Ron Mons, and our fantastic producer, Joshua Wilkie, in the production booth. Thanks, and have a great day.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.